My Memory of Light review is finally here, guys. It's been so long since I've actually read this book. So, like, as soon as I finished this book, I immediately thought to myself, alright, I'm gonna go review this book. And then life just kind of slammed right into me right as I finished that book. I'm not even joking. Obviously, right now it's September/October, and moving into uni and whatnot. It's a stressful time. I've just been struggling immensely to find time to do this review, but I finally found it, even though it's been quite some time since I've actually read this book. However, I remember most of it. I actually retain stories quite well. I remember most of it. I have my notes with me. It's all very fresh in my mind. It's not like it's been like 2 months or anything. It's just been like three or 4 weeks. It got so much to talk about. First off, yeah, this is gonna be spoilers completely. I don't know anyone who would watch a spoiler-free review of Memory of Light. If you've gotten this far into this series, you've read. I just wanted to get onto my concerns going into this book. Everyone has concerns going into the final book of a series or the final season and whatnot. The ending is where it all counts. Sticking the landing is what it's all about for the ending. A bad ending can honestly ruin an amazing story, and a good ending could make a bad story great. So endings are like this turning point. They're a big deal, right? And my issue is whether this final book, because we've had so many storylines, so many characters you have to wrap up these storylines for in a satisfying way, in a condensed way, telling a well-contained story that's not too, I was worried that maybe not much would happen until like the last 100 pages, which is how like Sanderson sometimes tends to write his books, like the Sanderlanche, right? Or it's just a whole book full of just non-stop action and lacking quiet moments and these character interactions that we love so much. However, what I will say is that Brandon Sanderson nails it. This book is so well balanced. You've got the quiet moments, you've got the politicking, you've got character moments, you've got the epic moments, you've got big freaking shit happening. The battle scenes are technically some of the most impressive battle scenes I've ever read in a book. I have no idea how they're going to adapt this for the show. When they eventually get to it in like 10 years from now, I generally think a whole season has to be dedicated to A Memory of Light, because there's just so much maneuvering going on from all these different places, all these different factions. It's just so much going on, but you can still really follow it through quite easily. And it was just overall so well written. This book is really, really impressive. Just on a technical aspect. I haven't even got to the actual story elements yet. For example, this book I think is just over 1,000 pages, and I consumed this less than a week. I think I spent like 5 days reading it. I could not stop putting it down. Whenever I was not with the book, I was thinking about the book. While I was reading the book, I was just so immersed into it. So this book opens off amazingly. I kept thinking, how is this going to open? In every prologue for the Wheel of Time, it's so many different perspectives going on, but there's always that one perspective who dominates throughout. In this one, I was thinking, who is it going to be? It's going to be Rand, because he's the Dragon Reborn, he's the main guy. But no, the prologue is mostly in Talmain's perspective, and I just wanted to say, I don't think I mentioned it before. Talmain is kind of like Matt's right hand man in the band, and for the most part, he was always a side character. But there's one thing Brandon Sanderson does really good. I know Brandon Sanderson's Matt is a little bit too wordy for my taste, but I love his interpretation of Talmain's. In fact, I feel like Brandon Sanderson kind of made Talmain's his own character. Before Brandon Sanderson got the series, Talmain's was kind of a nobody. He was kind of a blank slate, a blank canvas, and Brandon Sanderson just made him his own. And I love Talmain's. He's just such a great right-hand man. He's a great friend. He's a great leader. He's just cut from the same cloth as Matt, but he's so different from Matt. I really love this character. This is like one of those side characters this is one of those side characters that I love as much as I love some of the main characters. I really love Talmain's, and having him be in the spotlight for the prologue was a great choice. So in the end, we find out that Varen's letter was about Trollocs going through the Waygate in Camlin, and there's an invasion in Camlin straight up. Matt's not there, so it's up to Talmain's to lead the front of this army. It's awesome. You know, that scene where you got the dragon to blow a hole in the wall. It's just amazing. Just the events that unfold. It's like a narrative going on. It's not pages and pages of hacking and slashing Trollocs. There's a narrative going on here. There's tension. There's stakes. There's plans constantly changing. It's just really well written. And the first kind of section of this book is about all the leaders of the world. Rand has gathered them all at the fields of Merilor to have a unified front against the Shadow. And obviously we see so many different players going on. We've got Rand, we've got the Aiel, we've got the White Tower, we've got just all Illian, Tear, Tamlin, Kehian, Elaine. It's all there. They've all been gathered. Everyone except the Sinshan. By the way, now that I've finished The Wheel of Time, I've been more ingrained into the fandom, and I realized just how many words I've mispronounced this entire time. Apparently, it's pronounced Sean-chan, which makes so much more sense now that I say it out loud. So, if any of you were watching my videos and just cringed every time I said Sinchan, I'm really sorry. There's so many others that I mispronounce as well. Okay, where was I? Now that everyone's here, Aviendha's also here. She's now a maiden and she feels worthy enough to talk to Rand. They're together. Before I get on to what I'm going to talk about later, let's just talk about the three girls. Elaine, Aviendha, and Min. At first, I was kind of open to the idea of this polymogamous relationship Rand has with all of them. It's kind of this open relationship that we have. We don't see that much in just fiction or fantasy. I haven't read much books like that, so I was like, okay, I'm open to this. Let's see how they go through with it. I don't know what Robert Jordan's intentions were for this. Overall, I'm kind of meh on it. Let me get it straight. I think the build-up with Rand and Aviendha was really great. There was so much tension there. It was a lot of humor as well. They worked really well together. The chemistry was great. That build-up was wonderful. But they never actually had a relationship because they spent so much time apart from each other after Fires of Heaven. However, in that time, Min and Rand spend the most time together and they actually develop a relationship. And for me, I feel like Min was the true love interest by the end, right? She's the one who kind of won us over. I know Robert Jordan intended for a polymonogamous relationship. However, I think personally, I would have just settled with Rand choosing one of them. As the typical love triangle, love squares goes, there's always the person at the center of it choosing one of them. Elaine and Rand is basically non-existent. I can't even remember. Like, they met once in Eye of the World. Nobody. I don't care about Elaine and Rand's relationship at all. I think it just serves a political reason, and that's it. However, I think the real triangle is with Aviendha, Min. Although Aviendha and Rand have great chemistry, I think Min and Rand were the better romance, in my opinion. Okay, that's my 2 cents on this whole love triangle, love square, shinimingrig. Okay, now let's get on to what I really want to talk about. I completely forgot to mention about Aviendha in Rudine, looking at the flash forwards of her family in the future. It's the opposite of what we got from Rand in book 4, where we've seen his ancestors, right? Now we're seeing Aviendha's lineage, her legacy, which is such a great twist. I love that. And what I love about this is that it shows that even if the forces of the light defeat the shadow, there are still going to be stakes at hold. There's still going to be enemies and conflicts. It's not all sunshine and rainbows as we're always led to believe after these final battles. There's always got to be threats, and the main threat in the future is the Seanchan. Aviendha tells Rand about this, and Rand changes some certain aspects to the Dragon's Peace. The Dragon's Peace was already existent in Aviendha's memories, right? And so what's changed here is that the Aiel are kind of governors of the Dragon's Peace. They're kind of like the police force. They're making sure that the Dragon's Peace is kept through rather than being another party that has to follow the Dragon's Peace. They kind of exist outside of it. And that's kind of one little break to hopefully change the tides of the future. I've got so many theories and interpretations about this. I know this is a review, not a theories and interpretations things. I'm still so new to this fan base, to this story. Even though I finished and read all the books, I still feel kind of like a noob. But I've got so many interpretations about this. But I'm gonna get to that at the end of the review because there's some stuff I need to go through and talk about before I get to that. But yeah, the Dragon's Peace, it drives some conflict. Some people aren't happy with this, and it's slowly but breaking this unified front that they're having here. Everyone's kind of turning against Rand. And we're thinking, oh shit, this is all falling apart. The Shadow's already here in Camlin. What's going to happen? Of course, Moraine has to show up. And when this, I swear to God, when I saw Moraine showed up, I just put my book down, just got up, and I had to breathe out. Like, oh my God, this is happening. This is fucking happening. I was so excited to see Moraine reunite with them. It was wonderful. I kind of love how we've been told that Moraine's going to have a really big part of this, and I love how it's very Moraine-like. You know, I wouldn't have loved it if Moraine had a big part in saving the world by, I don't know, weaving some cider, blah, 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 blah. Moraine is Blue Arja. She's kind of a politician. The reason we love her so much is for her grand speeches, the way she unifies people, the way she just has this presence, right? It's her words that's her true power. And that is exactly how Moraine unites the people. She tells them all this is part of the dragon's will, this is part of the prophecy, this is how that we will. Very Moraine-like. So Moraine essentially fixes up the conflict within the dragon's peace by being Moraine. And it was very in character. And this was exactly how I would have wanted it to go. However, with Moraine, you know, we spent so much time away from her. I would have loved to have seen a bit more of her. I would have liked to have seen her reunite with Lan, like an actual actually reunite with him. I mean, come on, some kind of embrace at least, you know. And Xuan Sanche, I mean, that's her best friend. There was no scene at all between them two. I mean, they were best friends. They were pillow friends, right? They had sex with each other. That's what pillow friends means, right? Why didn't they unite? I don't get it. I just wish that's just wishful thinking. You know, there's so much going on. I understand why we can't have all these reunions here. Like, I wish we got a reunion with all 5 Emmons Fielders. Overall, that's just wishful thinking. It's just the fan in me just wanted to see these interactions, although I think it would have served a lot if we got some final interactions there. But I digress. You know, there's more important matters ahead. So when we actually get to the war front with the Shadow, it's split into 4 groups. There's Lan and Agelmar at Tarwin's Gap, Elaine and Birgitte at Camlin, Iturald and Rand at Shal Ghul, and Egwene and Gareth Bryan at Kandor. I think I might have gotten some of those wrong. But, you know, we got the 4 main generals there, right? And even though when we're jumping through all of these different war fronts and most of it's just, oh, we've got cavalry here, we've got the archers here, it's the standard battle practices, right? It's kept interesting by Graendal, who's in the background, manipulating each of the great leaders and slightly changing their plans so that it would benefit the forces of the Shadow. That kept it really intriguing, so it wasn't just pages and pages of random battle and hacking and slashing Trollocs. There was machinations going in the background. There was manipulation going on in the background with Graendal. And I thought that kept it really interesting. Also with Graendal, how ironic it is that as a punishment she's been given the form of an ugly person, because Graendal's beauty was an asset that she completely revealed about herself, right? So it's quite ironic there, quite poetic. There's a side story in A Memory of Light that I like, but I have qualms about. I have some issues. Not big issues, but overall, I like the Androl and Pevara stuff. It is kind of in the Robert Jordan's style that we'd get a perspective from someone else. However, I think it's done differently. From my interpretation, when Robert Jordan writes from an outside third-party perspective in one of his books, whether it's like Bael Domon or Hareen, these characters aren't in the middle of the conflict of the book at heart. They aren't the surprise hero at the end. They're just there to offer an outside perspective, to give more context to the situation and to broaden and give more world building, right? That's why we got perspectives from Bael Domon, from Egwene in book 5, from Hareen in Winter's Heart. You know, these characters aren't integral to the narrative. They're not taking the spotlight from anyone else. They're not pushing the narrative forward. They're there to serve a purpose, which is either world building, exposition, and whatnot. I feel like the Androl and Pevara thing was kind of misinterpreted here. Yes, it would be in Robert Jordan's style to write about another character, and a character we haven't seen coming to the fold, but it doesn't mean that they come to the fold and are fixed and are like a hero or something, or they're integral to the narrative or the conflict at heart. They're there for a reason. I feel like Androl, as much as I really like this character, I feel like he's taking some of the spotlight away from characters I don't read about. And to put this into perspective, this guy has a higher POV count than Nynaeve in this book. And that just doesn't sit well with me. I don't know if this is a controversial opinion here. I really do love what they did with the Asha'man here. However, it could have been done with maybe in Loghain's perspective. You know, we've been kept being teased about Loghain having this crown above his head, having this big redemption. I can't say I was that impressed by it simply because we got more of this guy called Androl rather than Loghain, a character we've known since book one. That's just my 2 cents on it. I think Brandon Sanderson kind of misinterpreted how Robert Jordan utilized these third-party perspectives. However, what saves it is that Androl and Pevara, they're actually two really interesting characters. The way they have a double bond with each other. So she bonded him, he bonded her, and now they're so connected that they can hear each other's thoughts. And the way this was done through this, because Mazrim Taim is now one of the Forsaken. He's been upgraded, and he's got all the Asha'man. He's been locked off the Black Tower through that Ta Angrial that we saw in Towers of Midnight, and so no one can open gateways in there. They're all locked off. They're all quarantined. Androl and Pevara's connections are used in a very clever way, so they can communicate to each other without having to talk, while they're being kept hostage, right? And the way their bond was used, I would have liked it if this was shortened up a bit. I think this dragged on too much. I just wanted to get to our main characters first. We spent 12 books with these characters. I want to really read about them. I wouldn't have minded this if it was used much more sparingly, in my opinion. However, I do appreciate how Brandon Sanderson's really kind of using the laws and rules established by Robert Jordan and kind of playing around with them. You know, doing stuff that I don't think Robert Jordan would have ever done. And I think that's really commendable, really interesting. I generally feel like if Brandon Sanderson was given the chance to just write his own story set in this world using the rules established by Robert Jordan, he would create something really, really amazing and impressive. But for now, I feel like too much emphasis was placed on these two, even though I actually kind of really love these characters and how Brandon Sanderson used them. I know it's conflicting. My opinions on them are conflicting, but that's just the way I feel. In the end, this whole storyline with the Asha'man and Aes Sedai ends in one of the most satisfying ways. In the Age of Legends, men and women, male and female Aes Sedai used to work together, and this is one of the big themes about this story. How, you know, with the taint, the world is so divided. You know, not just between different countries, but between genders, right? And so the Aes Sedai now are just kind of a mockery of what they used to be. They're nothing like what they used to be in the Age of Legends. They were literally legends. And seeing now that the Asha'man and the Aes Sedai can work together to make a more unified tower, to make a more unified front, and seeing what can be achieved by them two working together as shown by Androl and Pevara, that's just a really great background story that happened in the Wheel of Time, and just a really wonderful way that Brandon Sanderson concluded all of this. You know, it's a big underlying theme within the series, and Brandon Sanderson handled it quite well here. So while all this is going on, our boy Matrim Cawthon is not there. So he's at El Buda, where the Sean Chan is currently occupied. He's gone to see Tuan, or Fortuana, as she is called now. So by the time he sees, they meet up with each other. Rand just appears out of nowhere because he wants to strike a deal with the Sean Chan because they are the last piece in this war front. They're the last piece within the Dragon's Peace. And seeing Rand and Matt reunite was hilarious. This felt more Brandon Sanderson than Robert Jordan, but I like it. I can tell it's a very fanboy moment where Rand and Matt kind of have this back and forth dick measuring contest where they're like, oh, I cleansed the taint, so yeah, that's... And then Matt's like, oh yeah, but I saved Moraine. I love this banter between the two. I'm really happy that Rand managed to be on good terms with both Perrin and Matt before the end of the story. I would have loved them three to actually be together, but I'm satisfied with this. I'm happy that no matter all the conflicts and changes that happened in their relationship, Matt, Rand, and Perrin, they were all on good terms with each other. They still really cared about each other, and they were still friends till the end, no matter how much changed. And I really like that scene. So, God, I don't know how I'm gonna go through this review and make it contain. So, first of all, I'm going to talk about the battles and the changes that happened. Then I'm going to move on to characters to keep it kind of focused. So, with the battle, we've got the four fronts going on. We've got the four great leaders. We know Grendel is manipulating stuff in the background, and people are starting to realize this. Elaine is slowly starting to realize that Bashir's plan is kind of corrupted. It's almost so perfectly manipulated so that it would just work for the shadow without being too obvious that this is a bad plan for the forces of the light. And so Elaine's like, holy shit, Bashir is a dark friend. Obviously, we know he's not a dark friend and that he's being manipulated in the background. But seeing all these characters realize it, like the same thing happens with Lan and Agelmar. Lan realizes that, Agelmar's plan was perfectly organized so that they would lose. And Lan also has the same revelation. Also, I forgot to mention that scene where Rand tells everyone to help Lan over at the Blight. Very emotional. I love that scene. I love how Lan, even though now that there's hope, he realizes he can't stick with this boneheaded idea that with his birthright to essentially die fighting the shadow at the Blight to reclaim Malkia, right? He knows that there's hope now. He can let Malkia fall, knowing that the Greater War will be won if he stays alive. And I really love that little character arc there. I'm glad we get to see more Lan perspectives. Same thing happens. So when Matt and the Shonchan are over to help Egwene's forces, obviously there's some tension with Egwene and the Shonchan because of some personal history. Matt has the same revelation. Gareth Bryan's plan is corrupted. There's some shit going on. Some shady shit is going on. And so everything falls apart. All four of the great generals who the entire plan rested on, these four great generals, is gone because they're corrupted. They've been manipulated. No one can trust them. So what do we do now? Rand is over at Shire Gul with Moraine and Nynaeve, ready to face the Dark One with Kalandor. The four great leaders, they've all been taken down. So who do we go to? Matt Cawthon. Yes, Matt Cawthon is the next best thing, and he has entire control over the plan. And this is really clever because not only is he a great general with the memories he has, his luck factor, the fact that he has the medallions so no Aes Sedai can tamper with his mind, is just so clever, so perfect. This is exactly the role Matt needed for this battle because the entire last battle rests on the shoulders of him. And not only that, he is the only person who knows the plan because saying it out loud, there are going to be spies everywhere. Darkfriend spies, you can't trust anyone. So the entire force, the entire plan against the Shadow is all on Matt. And he's the only person who knows how to go about this. And that revelation, that change in the narrative was so perfect. The way just the stakes just keep building and then we get that. I love it. That was brilliant. The way that was all planned out was brilliant. And there's also some personal stuff going on. Egwene is not too sure if she can really trust Matt to take all of this on his shoulders. And someone asked her, do you trust Matt Cawthon? She grew up with him. And we get that amazing flashback where she remembers Emmonsfield, Matt as a young person. And when one of those, some kid was drowning in like the lake or something, and Matt was the only one who went out to rescue him. Everyone made fun out of him, but no matter what, he still went out and did the same thing again. To his core, even though Matt Cawthon's a scoundrel, at his heart, he cares about people. He cares about the Emmonsfielders. Their well-being is at his best interest. It reminds me of that amazing scene in Lord of Chaos when Egwene was just chosen as the Amberlin, and the Aes Sedai are kind of shadowing her. They're kind of very hostile towards her. They're not treating her right. The Matt really hates that, right? He doesn't like it. And so he's the first one who goes up and kisses her ring and shows her the proper respect she deserves. To set an example, he forces men to do it to really show the Aes Sedai, these women who are so above everyone else, how to treat and Amrylin. And in all of this is because he cares about the Emmonsfielders, no matter how much shit he says. I love Matt Cawthorne. He's such a layered character. He's not just this scoundrel who doesn't care about anyone. I'd argue, on the forefront, it looks like him and Nynaeve are the most confrontational, the most, you know, they only care for themselves. But reality is, Nynaeve and Matt are the two characters who cares about the Emmonsfielders more than anyone else. Perrin has now found purpose and his loyalties towards his wife and um, Emmonsfield, the greater people. Rand is his duty as the dragon and saving the world. Egwene is so indoctrinated within the Aes Sedai, and that's where she truly felt at home. But I felt like Nynaeve and Matt are the only two characters who really never forgot about Emmonsfielders, who never forgot about the Emmonsfielders, the core five. And I feel like from the beginning they've always cared the most. That's just my interpretation. And so I love that scene. That was wonderful. So obviously Demandred is here, leading the forces of the Shadow in the last battle. Graendal's in the background doing some manipulations. Moraine is at Shire Ghul ready to face Rand, and Mazrim Taim over at the Ashaman. Got all these different forces at play. What I really do like is that Moraine is Ishamael, and he's always felt like the physical embodiment of the Dark Lord. Obviously, the Dark One is the great evil, right? But the Dark One, the embodiment of evil itself, he's not an actual person. And so here we have Moraine who's occupying that physical threat for Rand. He's the physical threat. Them two have always kind of been rivals. In a lot of ways, the Ishamael has always been the main focus. I mean, he's nameless after all. And seeing these two kind of essentially rivals go at it at the last battle was perfect. I wouldn't have wanted any more. I would have been really I never expected this, but I would have been so disappointed if the Dark One just was some guy, right? I'm glad it was so much more than that. It was a philosophical being. It was just an embodiment of evil, and Moraine occupied the physical challenges, so them two are having a sword fight. I'll get to that later. Let's talk about the last battle, which is like an insanely long chapter, but I wish it was longer because it was amazing. Egwene and Gorn are in the Aes Sedai camp, and then all of a sudden, gateways start opening, and the Sharons are here. We've heard so much about the Sharon. It's an entire continent we haven't seen, right? We've heard some stuff about them, we haven't heard much. Now they're here, an entire freaking continent. Demandred was there in Shara this whole time. He's kind of their prophetic leader, right? Their own chosen one, which works well for Demandred because he was, I think it was him, not Moraine, that was almost chosen as the dragon or something. So he has some resentment towards Lews Therin, and in a way, he made himself his own chosen one over at Shara. In just one book, I really got a great sense of who Demandred is, and he's already one of my favorite Forsakens in the series. And so the Sharons are here. Egwene and Gorn have to make their way through while not getting caught. That's awesome. There's a whole new threat here. Got so many Sharon channelers as well. Shit is not looking good. It feels like every time the light is looking good, something new comes on board. What I love about the last battle is, as much as it is an action set piece, it's a psychological chess game between Matt and Demandred. Demandred is shouting for the Dragon Reborn, not realizing that Matt Cawthorne is the one who's leading the forces of the light in the last battle. When Demandred throws something, Matt tries to deflect it. Matt is taking risks here. He's thinking like a gambler. Lives are being sacrificed unwillingly. And it's just this psychological chess game between the two is just wonderful. And in the background, we're getting the Rand stuff. I'll talk about the Rand stuff later. And we're getting Perrin and whatnot. But what I love was that the last battle was kind of Matt's battle. You got Perrin's battle going in the background in the World of Dreams. You got Rand's philosophical battle going at Shire Ghul. The three boys really have occupied different aspects within this battle. Not one of them felt like the other in terms of what role they were playing within the narrative. And I really, really love how Brandon Sanderson handled that. And there's just so many things to talk about within the last battle. So many cool uses of the powers and weapons already established within the series being used in the last battle. Let me just go through stuff that I just absolutely loved from the last battle. Using gateways to observe the battlefield from like a bird's eye view. Awesome. Also using gateways to open blind spots for the dragons to be used. You know, the um machine projectile bombs that Eludra made, right? So they're in the cave. No one, the shadows can't, forces of the shadow can't find them, and they're just opening gateways, throwing out dragons in blind spots. Very clever use of both the dragons and gateways over there. The Athamir using the Bowl of Winds to control the weather at Shire Gul. I love how all the cultures are involved in this battle, and they are using their own cultural specificities within this battle. Just so good. I just love it. It's not even like, oh, the Alfamia are here, they're Aes Sedai channelers, they're just throwing them in the battle. No, they're involved in the battle in the most Alfamia way, which is obviously controlling the weather, right? Love that. You know, Two Rivers men providing the archery front, Andorans with their heavy cavalry, and even the kinswomen providing healing over at Mayene. So Berylane has opened a healing station in Mayene, so that's where all the healing is gone, and that's where all the healing is done. And the kinswomen are over there healing everyone. And what I love about this is the stakes. The tensions are always there. I never felt like, oh, we're winning right now. No, I always felt like we just keep getting thrown another bone. Like, you know, the forces of the shadow keep coming out with something else, whether it's the Sharans or whether it's Graendal working in the background. We're always being thrown something more and we're always pushing. But essentially, there comes a point where you realize this is not a battle to be won. This is a losing battle. We're losing right now. And no matter how things are going, there's always something else there. And I always love how the stakes are at 100. You know, the tension is at 100 constantly. And one of my favorite things, which is like the most clever plan that Matt Cawthon ever came up with, they've been ordered whenever there's dying soldiers, they've been sent to a specific town called Hinderstap. And when dawn comes, they open the gateway to Hinderstap, and all of these people of Hinderstap, which now are like zombie crazed people, are out there fighting for the forces of the light. That is so freaking clever. I loved that callback to Hinderstap, and the way it was used. Matt Cawthon, what a guy! What a guy! I just love that. Just all of these different. I haven't even touched the surface on all the little tidbits that is interwoven within this battle. All the clever uses of all the different cultures and all the different characters. I just love it. Also, shout out to Uno. I love that guy. I love how he swears all the time. It's very funny. I've never read a battle like this that's so engaging. There's so much stake, so much tension. It's constantly, I'm just in fear of our characters, and there's so many different like, just subtle things. It's so clever. I just love it. I just love this battle. This was more than I could have asked for. All right, I'm just all over the place right now in my review. I'm all over the place, but I'm gonna do it by characters. I'm gonna do each character one by one to really give a focus for this review. Moraine. Once again, I liked Moraine's involvement in the Dragon's Peace. Her and Tom Merrilin's relationship, I like them better as subtle rivals, but it's whatever for me. Her being one of the two Aes Sedai to help Rand at Shire Gul, that I'm glad that she was involved there. I would have loved a bit more perspective chapters, and I would have liked her to reunite with characters a bit more. I understand why she wasn't given as much focus as intended. Although, once again, I would have liked a bit more with her, but I'm happy Moraine's here. I'm happy she got a happy ending. So, once again, her at Shire Gul, that was mostly Rand's battle in Shire Gul, so I understand why we didn't get much Moraine in that section. But once again, I love this character. She's one of the best characters in the Wheel of Time, and I'm happy with her ending. Galad surprised me. Galad Demandred. So Galad Demandred surprised me. There's some stuff that happens I'll get onto later, but I really like this character. I really like his redemption. I really love how he's so lawful good that he's kind of stubborn and he's a little bit of a dick. But the way he was used in the final battle here. So, you know, Galad facing Demandred after Gorn's death was super heartbreaking. I felt for Galad mostly. Gorn is a piece of shit. I hate him. And you know, the fact that he got his arm cut off like his half brother Rand. I saw that. once again, I did like Khaled. I'm glad he's alive. He did have his moments in this book, and I appreciate that. Lon is like one of the most underused characters in this series, so I'm glad to say he's a fucking beast in this book. Lon is a beast. He might have one of the most fist pumping moments in the entire series. So obviously, Gon, Galad, they both failed trying to kill Demandred. Demandred is at the height of his power right now. The forces of the shadow are winning, and by simply killing Demandred, it would really pull the favor in the forces of the light. And so Lan, with nothing to lose, goes there, beats Demandred, but in doing so also takes a huge blow to himself. And oh my god, it's one of the most fist pumping moments ever. After seeing all these people fail against Demandred, Lan, the beast, the man himself, defeats Demandred, and he's alive. Lan makes it out. I don't care. I'm glad Lan and Nynaeve had a happy ending. Although I didn't like how their relationship started out because it was very love at first sight. I do appreciate what it evolved to. I do love how Nynaeve humanized this man who showed very little emotions, hardened warrior with with this fate that he will die at his homeland, right? And I love how he knew that the fall of Malkia is just one step towards victory. And I feel like Nynaeve is a big part of why he just didn't go out and just get himself killed in battle. I actually really do appreciate their relationship as the series went on. And Lan, the dude was a beast in this book. I absolutely loved him. And he had the most fist pumping moment in the entire book. Fail and Oliver are tasked with getting the horn to Mat, and this was very fitting because Fail was introduced to us as a hunter for the horn, and now she has to deliver the Horn of Valere. That was really clever. And what I love about this, it's not an easy mission. They have to travel through the cursed blight, right? There's some shadow spawns that they have to face. Fail is constantly paranoid about some of the bands, some of her members of her party being dark friends who are secretly trying to take the horn away from her. Seeing so many people die in this process, her having to give the horn to Olva and ride off with Bella while she distracts the Shadow Spawn. There's just, well, like I said, there's never an easy mission here. There's always tension at hand. There's always stakes. It was really good use of Fail and Olva in this book. And when Lan kills Demandred, and at the same time we see Olva is trapped in that crevice, and we thinking to ourselves, the horn is never going to get to Mat. And Olva sounds the horn, and the heroes of the horn arise. Ah, what an amazing moment! What a way to end the last battle, and it makes so much sense because obviously Mat technically died, so he's no longer tied to the horn. He's no longer the horn sounder. That reveal, perfect, brilliant. I could tell that was all Robert Jordan. I don't believe it's when he was hung in Rudine. I believe it's, I don't think they said it, but I tell me if I'm wrong, but it's in Fires of Heaven where Raven used Balefire and killed everyone, including Aviendha and Mat. And then Rand used Balefire on Raven, thus reviving Mat and Aviendha. So technically, Mat died there, but he came back to life because of Rand. That's what they were talking about. That's what the heroes of the Horn were talking about. I'm pretty sure that was it. But once again, so clever. All hope was lost, and then when we get that moment with Lan, and then all of a sudden the horn, just beautiful. I love that moment. Elaine. I actually really liked Elaine in this book. She's one of the biggest political leaders right now. I kind of love how ruthless Elaine is. I love how manipulative she is, how kind of selfish she is with privatizing the dragons. Her main focus is on Andor's safety, on Andor's benefits. She just wants to rise in power, and that's what she wants. She wants power, and I kind of love that about her. That's really interesting to me. And what I loved is that most of Elaine in this book was with Birgitte. I feel like out of all the relationships in this book, the most compelling one she has is with Birgitte. And I really love that friendship and how they spend most of this book with each other. And that scene where that creepy guy Mela comes out of nowhere, beheads Birgitte, and is threatening to cut her womb out to preserve the babies but kill her. was freaking horrifying. I mean, I never expected shit to go this dark. I was like, oh my god. And obviously when the horn is sounded, Birgitte comes back because she's the hero of the horn, kills Mela. It was just such a great moment. I was just distraught by what just happened with Birgitte. So seeing her come back, seeing Jane Fostrider come back and save Oliver, he's a hero of the horn now. Once again, it's just brilliant. I just love it. I'm just here just praising the book. This is my review, guys. I'm just quoting about what happens and saying I love it because most of this book is freaking perfect. Min's character really grew on me, and I really like Min. I love the way she was used here. So she is used with the Seanchan. So Mat is with the Seanchan, and since Min is a seer, she can see the future. And the Seanchan are their culture. They place a big emphasis on omens and whatnot, and foresights and juju, and so Fortuana employs Min as her doomsayer, her kind of right-hand woman who kind of has big influence on Fortuana. And this is great because Min now has influence on one of the biggest political leaders currently fighting. Obviously, when Mat makes this ploy to kind of trick whatever dark friends, whatever spy is there, so he's pretends that he had a falling out with Fortuana and the out from the war, and so this is all a ploy to figure out who is the spy within there. And when Min figures it out, it's perfect. Min was used so well within here, from her foresight, the way it was tied in with the Seanchan. She was just used really well in this book. Aviendha is one of my favorite characters in the book, and seeing her being involved with the Dragon's Peace was tied in with her flash forwards from the previous book, used well. Her, Kharswan, and some of the maidens and some of the wise ones and the Aes Sedai are at Shire Gul, making sure no one enters the cave where Rand, Nynaeve, and Moraine are. So making sure that the Forsakens are about to come. They're gotta intervene there. That's their job, to make sure no one enters there. Her battle with Graendal was brutal and bloody. The way the explosive gateweaves were used, once again, brilliant stuff there. And Graendal has one of the most greatest uses of poetic justice ever, where Aviendha uses compulsion on Graendal, and Graendal is just now a moonstruck servant for Aviendha, like Graendal used to use for her own servants. That was perfect poetic justice. So glad Aviendha's alive. I was so scared for her for a minute there. I thought she was about to die. Once again, she was used really well. Siuan Sanche, one of my favorite characters in the entire series, broke my freaking heart when she died. So I love Siuan Sanche and Egwene's relationship. That friendship is wonderful. I feel like the friendships that the series tries to push forward within the beginning between the Emmonsfielders isn't as compelling as the friendships they made with other people, in my opinion. I feel like it's the new friendships and the new dynamics that are really stood out. Whether it's Egwene and Siuan, Mat and Tom Merrilin. Mat and Tom Merrilin is my favorite dynamic in the entire series. I love those two. Perrin and Gol, I'll get to Perrin later, but I love Perrin and Gol's friendship. That's a wonderful friendship. All these different dynamics are at the forefront here. They're the ones that's given the most emphasis on. And Siuan, I just loved her journey for this entire series, and her death scene, I've got issues with it, but overall I love the idea of Siuan's death. And let me tell you why I love the idea. Okay, I know it sounds morbid saying I love the idea that she died. No, I wish she survived, but the concept of her death scene is technically brilliant. Should I tell you why? Because throughout the series we kept hearing about Siuan Sanche's uncle, who ran into a burning building to save people, and in the process he died. And he's a hero at heart. He's a scoundrel and a hero at heart. And who does she say this to all the time? Mat Cawthorne. In the Dragonborn, one of my favourite scenes in the entire series, where Siuan Sanche and Mat Cawthorne talk to each other for the first time. She keeps comparing him to her uncle, who kept running into the building and saving everyone, despite the fact that he died in that building, right? And she kept asking him, are you this type of person? But lo and behold, when the time came, she would be like her uncle, who literally ran into a burning building to save who? Matt Cawthon. The tables have literally turned. You cannot tell me this was not done on purpose. It's so... The way this was called back to that, and the fact that it had to be Matt that she ran in to save, was perfect. What I didn't like was that how it was given to us. It was from Min's perspective, and it was almost like she turned her head around and she saw Siuan and Sunshine on the floor. I would have loved it if Siuan had more of a role within actually saving Matt herself and dying in the process rather than just running into the building and dying. I love the idea. I wish the execution was a little bit different because it kind of came out of nowhere. But once again, Siuan and Sunshine broke my heart. One of my favourite characters. But I really do understand where they were going with this death scene, and I do think the idea of it is brilliant. I just wish the execution was a little better. Loyal, I don't have much to say other than the Ogier are freaking badass in war. They're like the most peaceful people ever. When they get into war, they're like machines. And Loyal, so wholesome. I love Loyal. Once again, glad he's alive. He's got to write his book. Once again, the Ogiers, they're freaking beasts. I love the Ogiers. They aren't really in the story that much, but I just love them. It just wouldn't be the same without them. Loyal is a wonderful character. So glad he got a happy ending. Perrin Ibara. So his role in here is trying to hunt down Slayer, who's out there trying to disrupt Rand's plan in Shelgol, who's there to assassinate Rand. So Perrin once again is in the world of dreams, hunting down Slayer. The way Elias and the wolves were also used in Shelgol. Wonderful, love that. I love that Perrin and Gol were together in this fight. The two bros. I love their friendship all the way from the Dragon Reborn when he freed him. It's one of my favourite friendships in the entire series. I'm glad those two were together for this book. With Slayer, personally, I actually would have liked it if Perrin killed Slayer in the 12th book, because there was a moment, they've had their battle, right? And we're seeing another Slayer battle here. Within the writing of it is super interesting, and the way these powers are used is awesome. The way it's kind of like he keeps teleporting into the wolf dream, and he figures out how to do that from switching from the real world to the wolf dream. Also very cool, very awesome. Perrin is so skilled within his abilities. But with Slayer, I don't know. I think I would have liked it more if Perrin was going against Moghedien or something, because Moghedien is the master of Talar and Riod, right? And she pretty much does nothing for this book. I would have liked it if Slayer was killed at the end of book 12, and instead we get Perrin versus Moghedien in this book. I think it would have made a bit more sense here, to show that Perrin is the true master of the world of dreams. Although what I did like is Lanfear in this book. Rand has a final confrontation with Lanfear and says, I'm done with you. Lanfear, obviously, she's kind of an eel. She's kind of a leech. She just wants power. That's all she wants. It's all about her. And so what she do, she latches on to the next Tower of Elrond she can get. She latches on to Perrin and says, us two could be the most powerful couple in the world. And Perrin's like, I don't know, get away from me, bitch, right? And we see Lanfear, who's just this outside party who appears every now and then. We don't know if she's trying to help Perrin or if she's against him. What is her deal here? But what we do know is that she has nothing but her own self-interest at heart. Everything she does is for her own self. Perrin's final confrontation with Lanfear, the way she used compulsion on him, but he fought against that and killed her, and he still kind of feels bad that he killed her, and he hates the fact that he feels that. That was really, really compelling stuff right there. With Slayer, I think Slayer, I would have been more invested in Slayer being the final boss for Perrin if we could have gotten a bit more backstory for him. The fact that Slayer is the brother of Tigraine and also related to Lan Mandragoran, and this whole backstory of him, I'm not even too familiar with it because it's barely within the series, but I just wish we could have gotten more of his backstory because it's fascinating. It's really, really fascinating stuff. And I would have been more invested on him being a big villain for this book, for Perrin specifically, if we could have gotten more of that backstory within the previous books. I just wish Slayer's backstory was given to us a bit more to make him a bit more of a compelling villain. But overall, I really like Perrin's use in this book. I wish he wasn't asleep for the entire final battle, but him in the World of Dreams, him in Gold, two bros at it, hunting down Slayer, I like it. Nynaeve is a character that I've loved since book 1 even. I love Nynaeve. I always got the sense that she's always cared about the Emond's Fielders at heart. With Nynaeve, I love her conflict in this book because once again, it's very in tune with her character. So she finds Alanna at Shal Ghul, who's about to die. Alanna is bonded with Rand. If Alanna dies, the water bond's going to affect the water bond is going to affect Rand's mental state in the battle, and he'll be thrown off by her death. So, and now that Nynaeve is in a circle with Rand, and Rand is using all of her cider, how is she going to heal Alanna? And once again, this is her using her wisdom ways. She was always belittled by the Yellow Ajah for using old-fashioned herbal remedies for healing, and now that she's stuck with her wisdom ways, is the thing that saved the world, because it's the only thing that she has to save Alanna. It was very in tune with Nynaeve's character. She's a healer, she's not a killer, she heals people, and her going back to her roots to heal Alanna, and the fact that she needs to heal a woman to save the world, so in tune with Nynaeve's character. That's the exact conflict that you needed for this character within this book. I just wish we could have gotten more POVs with Nynaeve. One thing that's kind of frustrating is this severe lack of Nynaeve POVs in the Brandon Sanderson books. I really wanted more Nynaeve. It kind of annoyed me that we didn't get more Nynaeve, but Nynaeve is seriously top 3 characters for me. I absolutely adore this character. And if there's one character, if I had to choose out of anyone, who would I want to have the happy ending? It would be her. Nynaeve deserves a happy ending, and I'm glad she got it with Lan. And also, all of our Emond's Fielders have been marrying like people of power. You know, Nynaeve and Lan, she's the Queen of Malkia now. Egwene and Gon, I suppose. Elaine, Rand, Matt and Fortuana. Perrin and Fail, because Fail is now the Queen of Saldea, right? Now that her father and her cousin have died. Egwene Alver, once again, another character I really love. What I love about Egwene Alver is that I always felt like she never really fit in with Emond's Field. You know, and what I do really love is that relationship with her and Rand. You know, these two knew nothing but Emond's Field and knew nothing that other than the fact that them two were meant to be with each other. It isn't until they ventured out into the wider world that realized that they're not meant for each other. And Egwene has always wanted something more. You know, the White Tower, the Aes Sedai is her true home. It's her true calling. Her spearheading the Aes Sedai Civil War storyline was one of the best storylines in the entire series, most consistent. And what I feel about her is that we've got the 3 boys who are chosen by destiny, but Egwene, she made her own destiny. She carved her own fate, even though there's some comparisons with the two. You know, Rand was chosen by the pattern itself to be the Dragon Reborn. Egwene was chosen by a bunch of people to be the Amyrlin Seat. And so they kind of have this parallel storylines, those two. The way her story unfolds in this book and her conclusion just broke my heart, because Egwene was the big death of this book. So it's her final confrontation with Mazrim Taim. First of all, let me get on to the man himself. Gawain. Apparently his name was pronounced Gawain. I'm not going to call him that. He doesn't deserve to have his name pronounced properly. It's Gorn. Trash he is. So Gorn, being the idiot that he is, what does he do? Puts on the rings and he goes out to face Demandred by himself. Even though the entire point of him in the Gathering Storm was to learn that he can't be going out there being a hero. As Egwene's warder, he has to be by her side at all times, but he completely backtracks on that, leaves Egwene, goes to face Demandred, dies. Egwene is distraught because her husband and her warder has been killed, and goes off to face Mazrim Taim by herself. She doesn't care what happens anymore. I completely blame Egwene's death on Gorn being a freaking idiot. I hate that character. I hate him. I mean, honestly, she should have just bonded Egwene from the beginning. She was just a much better warder than Gawain could ever be. Obviously, Mazrim Taim is here. The Ashaman have recuperated Logain, Androl opening that big-ass gateway for the lava. Awesome scene. And Mazrim Taim is here. And he's using Balefire, and he's destroying the pattern. We've learned that Balefire destroys the pattern. And then Egwene figures out the anti-Balefire weaving. And so she fixes the pattern while trying to battle Mazrim Taim. And in a final burst of power, she weaves the flame of Tar Valon. She heals the pattern, and she dies in the process whilst killing Mazrim Taim. It broke my heart that Egwene died. It was so sad, but she went out like a freaking boss. It almost reminded me of the story of the Queen of Manetheren when her husband died and she released this great burst of power. It very much felt like that. That was so sad, but it makes sense because Egwene was the Amyrlin they needed for the last battle, and her death marks the end of this age and the dawn of a new age. And Egwene died, the Amyrlin Sea, and Aes Sedai. This is her true calling, her true home, and I think her story was wonderful. And I completely understand why this was her ending. And yeah, Gorn sucks. I hate him. He's the biggest piece of shit in this entire story. Their romance sucked. But yeah, Egwene Alver, my Amyrlin. Now, for the two heavy hitters, the last two characters I left for last, Mat and Rand. Let's talk about Mat first. Mat Cawthorn is the MVP of this book. The entire last battle technically is Mat's battle. It was his showcase. And Mat bloody Cawthorn, man, what a character. This is one of the most unlikable burdens in the first book, and now he's like top 2 characters in the Wheel of Time. And what a turnaround, what a turnaround. And with Mat, I've talked about him in the battle, how he was the last general standing, the final confrontation. Mat, his conversation with Arthur Hawkwing was great. The fact that he tells him to go talk to Fort Tuana to kind of change their ways. I wish we saw a scene with that, by the way. But even though Mat leads the last battle to victory, the fight's still not over. He needs to go to Shell Gul. He still feels that pulling with Rand that, there are forces at play. Slayer's out there, but Perrin's focusing on Slayer. But we've got the man himself, Mordeith. Padan Fain is out there. Padan Fain is like this third party. He's not the Shadow. He's just his own thing. He's just killing everyone. He's this vile, like, why are you here? He's this vile thing that's just out there, just in the most inopportune times, right? So Mat feels this calling. So him and Olva travel on that flying thing that the Shanshan uses to go to Shal Ghul. And that's where Mat has a final confrontation with Padan Fain. And at first I thought Mat straight up died when Padan Fain just pulled, used all his powers against him, and I fully thought Mat died. I was like, this is not happening right now. Not Mat. Please not Mat. Obviously, it turns out that because Mat has already had the dagger and he's been gotten rid of it, but a bit of that remains, and so the effects doesn't affect him anymore. And he used that against Padan Fain, and Padan Fain, the most vile, pathetic villain in the entire series, dies in the most pathetic way possible, being killed with his own dagger by a guy who doesn't even have any powers at all. He doesn't have channeling. He has his luck and stuff, but what could that really do in a battle like this? So essentially, Padan Fain was out there trying to get Rand, and he just so happens to run into the one person who his powers has no effect on. And I don't know if that's a product of Padan Fain's bad luck or Mat's great luck, but I kind of love that. I kind of love how pathetic Padan Fain's death is, and how Mat so casually, so easily defeats Padan Fain that right after the battle, he just whistles to himself and walks off. That's how inconsequential his battle. That's how inconsequential Padan Fain's death is. I kind of love that. I kind of love how this pathetic villain, he's a failed villain, right? And he dies in the most pathetic of ways. And I kind of love that. He really is the anti-Mat Cawthorn. He's just everything. He's just chaotic evil, whereas Mat is chaotic good. And I'm kind of glad those two were the final confrontation. Although I would have liked it if Perrin also had a hand in fighting Padan Fain as well, because there's that personal history there. Perrin finds out that Padan Fain killed his family. I would have liked it more if Perrin was involved as well. But I actually kind of like the Padan Fain ending. I love Mat Cawthorn. He's one of the best characters in the Wheel of Time. This is the greatest use of the archetype of the scoundrel, right? The quippy scoundrel. It's not just, he's a quippy scoundrel who doesn't care about anyone but himself. It's like the way Robert Jordan manages to write a really selfish character who's also really selfless. These two conflicting aspects, but it works so well with Mat Cawthorn because he is incredibly selfless. He's like Rand said, he is a hero at his core, even though he doesn't want to admit he is. And Mat, obviously, off with Fortuana. I'm glad that it's not just this big love confession there. Mat is not sure if he actually loves Fortuana at the end, but he knows his destiny is tied with her. I like that. I like how open it was, especially knowing that Robert Jordan intended to push forward with this storyline with the Sean Chan and Matt Cawthon. Man, I really wish Robert Jordan were here so we could see those books because they would have been wonderful. But either way, Matt Cawthon, a standout character. He was the MVP in this book, in my opinion. And just him in the last battle, amazing, amazing stuff. I just really love this character. Now let's talk about the Dragon Reborn himself, Rand al'Thor. Like I said, he had a confrontation with Moradin using Kalandor, but his real confrontation was the Dark One. I love how this wasn't a battle. This was a philosophical battle. Rand is entering different alternate realities, different possibilities where the forces of the Shadow win. He sees characters like Nynaeve and Egwene working for the Shadow. Then he sees a reality where nothing but the forces of the Light win, where he defeats the Dark One, and he realizes that this is a world he doesn't want to live in. This is a world where free will does not exist, because since the Dark One is the embodiment of evil, he also is the key to free will. You can't have free will if you can't have evil. And just this philosophical conundrum that Rand is in, and this decision he has to make, and knowing that there is no way he can possibly kill the Dark One if this is the future, that's got to end up. That's got to be. And the fact that this philosophical battle was not one of physical power, but one of will. Whose will is the strongest here? That is an amazing conflict. That is an amazing idea for Rand's final battle with the Dark Ones. Him realizing that the world depends on this balance, and him coming to terms with the idea that the wheel weaves. You can't break the wheel. It has to continue weaving, and he has to put the seal back on the Dark One's prison, and that's how it is. And the way they manipulated the prophecies so that it would be Moradin who would take hold of Kalandor. And so Moradin takes hold of Kalandor, Nynaeve, and Moraine, uses that power, and Rand uses all three, Kalandor being held by Moradin, Nynaeve, Moraine there, and uses that power to seal the Dark One's prison. Perfect manipulation of the prophecies. I did not expect that. I loved it. And the ending of A Memory of Light might just be the most satisfying ending I've ever read or ever experienced for a narrative. Rand is supposedly dead. Nynaeve is distraught because Nynaeve is really saddened by Egwene's death and now Rand's, but something is off. Aviendha, Min, and Elaine, they're not crying. This is the person they love. He's dead. Why aren't they crying? They're not showing much emotions, and Nynaeve's wondering what the hell is going on here. As it turns out, Rand al'Thor's body is dying, but Moradin is still alive. As it turns out, a body swap happened. So Rand is currently in Moradin's body right now. And Rand, they're up there cremating Rand's body. Everyone thinks the dragon is dead. The reality is he swapped bodies with Moradin. Not only that, he doesn't have channeling anymore. He doesn't have side in. But he still has some kind of power. So he can bend the pattern itself to his will. So he's essentially controlling reality itself. It's not channeling, it's something else, right? And so when he lights the pipe, I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? So he doesn't have channeling, but he can light the pipe. So I do think he is bending the pattern itself, and that is his ultimate power, which is like an insane god level power. And yeah, that's Rand's ending. He is body swapped with Moradin. Moradin is essentially dead in Rand's body, and Rand lives in Moradin's body. What I love about this ending is that this is exactly what Rand wanted. Like, this ending is perfect because Rand has known nothing but what others have forced upon him. For the longest time, he was the Dragon Reborn, right? For the past 2 years, he was the Dragon Reborn, forced to die on the slopes of Dragon Mount to save the world. He has never truly had a choice to be what he wanted to be. As the Dragon Reborn, he was forced to be something that the world needed him to be. But now, he has a second chance. He has a new body. He has a second chance at life to just live. Spent this whole time trying to figure out how to survive. He never thought about living. And the fact that the Dragon Reborn Rand al'Thor kind of has a second rebirth within Moradin, the fact that he's reborn again as this new person. I mean, not a new person, he's still Rand al'Thor, but the fact that he has a second chance is so wonderful. Elaine, Nynaeve, and Aviendha, they know this and they let him go out there. He has a sack of money because of that. Remember, Min saw that foretelling of that woman who would be responsible for killing Rand al'Thor. Essentially, she knew that Rand was in Moradin's body, and so she gave him all the supplies he needed to kind of escape and live off on his own. And she was involved in killing Rand al'Thor, the Dragon Reborn, but not Rand al'Thor, the normal village bumpkin that we saw in The Eye of the World. And I just love this. I love it. And you can see some Tom Merrilin in there in him as well. The fact that he's got to go out there on his own, on his little adventures, maybe just doing whatever he wants. He has a second chance at life. I absolutely love that. I love the fact that he's not the Dragon Reborn anymore. He can be whoever he wants to be. It's such a perfect ending, and I'm just completely satisfied. There are endings where I read it and I think to myself, oh, I need some time to marinate over it, right? I read this ending and I immediately thought to myself, that is a phenomenal ending and I love it. And what can I say? A Memory of Light. It's one of the most satisfying books. Now, post-book thoughts. I want to talk about the Seanchan. So, with Aviendha changing the Dragon's Peace so that the Aiel are kind of this police force, what I believe this to be is not her changing the future, because how far will making the Aiel a governing force over the Dragon's Peace really change the future? What I think this is I still got to see the future where the Seanchan are kind of this giant empire, right? However, I believe that this little change that Aviendha has made is just something that will steer them in another direction. It's one more thing to hopefully change their future. I think another thing that will be involved within this conflict with the Seanchan in the future is the fact that Matt Cawthon is there. In this book, it was made very clear Rand is not the Dragon Reborn anymore, and Perrin is not Taraveran. There was a scene where it was basically stated that Perrin doesn't feel that connection with Rand anymore, and that he doesn't think he's Taraveran anymore. However, we don't get any of that for Matt. Knowing that Robert Jordan wanted to continue this story forward with Matt and the Seanchan, I really do believe that Matt is the last living Taraveran, because the pattern still needs him for the Seanchan conflict. And so Matt, the Aiel, all of these different factors are going to affect how the Seanchan conflict goes in the future. I don't know if this story will ever get told. It doesn't really need to. We've got enough to interpret and theorize about what will happen. I do love that even though the forces of the light won, that there will still always be threats in the future. And that I really wish more stories can do that. It's not this perfect, happy, sunshine and rainbows ending, right? And what other theories I have? With Rand, I do believe he can manipulate reality itself. With his Taraveran energy, we saw this before, but now he has greater control over it. He can do anything he wants, right? He's essentially like a god. And I believe, in terms of stuff, most storylines were wrapped up, I think, really well. Who the hell is Nakomi? We saw Nakomi in the previous book with Aviendha. We saw her again at the slopes of Shao Ghul, I think. Who the hell is Nakomi? I'm kind of glad that we've had so many mysteries. The thing with books nowadays is that everything is given to us, all the answers are given to us, but here there's so much to theorize about. There's so much I could talk about. I could ramble on and on about the theories I have. And I love the fact that they've kind of kept some mysteries here for us, and I love that. Overall, those are my post-book thoughts, interpretations, theories. I've got so much more, but I don't want this to be a theory video. However, what I want to say is that A Memory of Light is borderline perfection. The only problems I had is that I wish we had more interactions between some characters, maybe a bit more POV chapters of Nynaeve or something. But overall, this is nothing but 1 hour of me gushing about how much I love this book. It's one of the most satisfying endings I've ever read. Technically, one of the most impressive final battles I've ever read in fantasy. Some of the greatest character arcs ever. All 5 Emmonsfielders are some of the most iconic characters in the fantasy genre, in my opinion. All 5 of them have an amazing arc. All 5 of them are wonderful. Rand al'Thor, Matt Cawthon, Nynaeve, some of my favourite characters in fiction ever. The magic system, the way everything just ties in together, all these different cultures. The Wheel of Time is gargantuan. It's rough at the start and it has its issues throughout. Even this book, I also had some issues with. But I think you can love pieces of media knowing that there are faults and criticisms within it. However, what I will say is that A Memory of Light is not a perfect book, but it is damn near close to it. And this book absolutely deserves a 10 out of 10. A Memory of Light is a 10 out of 10 book. I absolutely adore this. I'm so satisfied with this ending. I was a little worried it wouldn't live up to the hype, but it exceeded my expectations. And I can't wait to revisit this series. I can't wait to reread it. I genuinely want to reread it sometime soon. But yeah. And my Wheel of Time luck, I'm one of the lucky ones because I've read the Wheel of Time, I finished my journey, but the journey's not over because we've got the TV show coming out. I will absolutely do a season review of the TV show whenever that comes out. When all episodes come out, I'll do a review of that. I'm also thinking about doing a series review for the Wheel of Time, kind of journeying my thoughts throughout the series, my personal opinions on some of the criticisms, some of the praises it is. Tell me if you guys are interested in a series review of the Wheel of Time. I'm thinking about doing something like that. And yeah, I have so many videos I want to talk about, analyzing characters and whatnot. I'm not going to be a Wheel of Time channel, don't get me wrong. I want to, especially now having reviewed all of the books, I want to kind of take a break from Wheel of Time content. But man, Memory of Light, it was a wonderful book. This journey has been so long. I mean, it's been like four months. Took me 4 months to read these books, but it was a wonderful journey. Thank you for everyone who stuck with me and watched all of my reviews. Thank you all. You guys are a big reason why I stuck through making these reviews. And yeah, I can't believe it's over. Oh my god, it's over. Oh, I had like the biggest case of post-book depression, and I still feel it. Can't believe it's actually over. Anyway, guys, thank you guys for watching. Videos in the future might be a bit slow because I am moving back to university, so I don't know if I'll have the free time to make videos consistently, but I will return. I will be making more Wheel of Time videos. I'll be making more other videos about other books, other properties, and whatnot. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.